I have a section in my book on sort of creative alternative tactics. One of my favorite stories was in Denmark in the 90s. There was a fascist house, or really an explicitly Nazi house, created. And one of the main tactics used to respond to them was to have nightly singing vigils outside their window that drove them crazy. Ultimately, though, the house was actually uprooted because a woman from Butte, Montana, who was related to the original owner of the house, pursued a legal case to show that actually she was the rightful owner of the house and had them evicted. So that's kind of an interesting story. I learned about a puppet protest in Texas where there was a Klan rally on the steps of a courthouse or something, and they had this huge puppet show actually involving, what was it, like gallows for Klansmen or something. You know, it was a dark spectacle, but certainly an alternative way of going about it. Another was one that happened in the Netherlands, when local anti-fascists, who essentially, as it was explained to me, the anti-fascist movement was at a lull. They couldn't mobilize a lot of people. So rather than taking all the leftists from the major cities to go out to the smaller areas to protest, they essentially, a handful of anti-fascists went out to the town where the far-right demonstration was going to be in advance and tried to organize locally, and essentially found relatively good success getting locals who actually were much more militant and confrontational than the leftists when push came to shove, and in that way sort of thinking about who the anti-fascists are, who's the demographic, who can do what. I thought that was an interesting story. The notion of kind of creating another one is in Denmark, at least in the 90s, they would often call the parents of neo-Nazi skinheads. And that worked like better than any other tactic. Now, of course, that relies on the fact that you have to have parents who are opposed to that, right? But in their case, they did. So those are a few things that come to mind, but I have other ones in the book.